Today, I'm going to rank all the airlines I have flown in the last 7 years in Europe. If you haven't seen me before, hi, my name's Dan. I've flown over 200 different airline premium products as I do this full-time for my job. I'm very lucky to get to fly around. If I was going to go book a flight and all of these airlines, every single European airline was an option, I would pretty much choose in this order if the price was equal. And if I haven't flown an airline long haul in a premium cabin in over 7 years, they don't get to be included in this ranking for now. So this will not be completely exhaustive because it's unfair. If I haven't flown an airline in so long, I can't include them. That would be Aer Lingus, won't be included. Air Europa, Brussels Airlines, which is such a bummer because I used to love them, but I've only flown them in Europe for quite a while. Edelweiss, Air Serbia, Aeroflot, and Ukraine International for obvious, unfortunate reasons. So with that, let's start our ranking. So what are the categories and what do they mean? The best of all is take my money. That means it doesn't even matter if I can't book this airline on points or if they're expensive. I would be happy to pay a bit more to be able to fly with them. So that makes them the best in my view. Then there's take my points. So airlines that I would gladly shell out a bunch of points to fly. Of course, I'd also pay cash if it was a very, very good deal, but it's slightly less than, I'm just happy to pay for this. Then there's red eye, which are the airlines where maybe I wouldn't fly them on a long daytime flight just to have a fun, enjoyable experience, but they're comfortable, they're good enough, and I wouldn't mind flying them. Then we have only option. And this is where it starts to get a bit tricky because these are the airlines that I would only fly if there was no affordable cash flight, I should say, on any other option, and there was an award seat on that airline. So they would really have to be my very last choice. If there was no other way I could get somewhere in a comfortable seat, I would be like, okay, fine, I'll fly with them. And finally, I'd rather swim. These are the airlines that I wouldn't even get on no matter how good the deal or how good the points price. I refuse under almost all circumstances. So in Europe, that might not be a super relevant category, we'll see, but in some other regions, it's going to be very, very juicy. So let's start off here with, you see this beautiful list of airlines. In Europe, there's not too many. When I list them all out here and I've excluded the ones I haven't flown in 7 years, I'm like, what? This is it? But Austrian Airlines, a good place to start. They are definitely, in my opinion, the best contender in the Lufthansa group. Austrian Airlines has a nice mix of cultural elements, more quality food, higher quality food than some of the other Lufthansa group airlines. And they're just a little more fun to fly. It's also a bit nicer to fly through Vienna because it's a smaller airport, but it does smell like smoke, at least when I was there last, which is weird, even in the terminal. Maybe don't take that as a statement that that's what it always smells like. That's just what I associate with it. But Austrian can be a take my points. I think they're a decent, solid option. Now I said I wouldn't include Brussels Airlines, so sorry Brussels, you're going to have to stay down here. Condor, funnily enough, is going to be another situation where I say take my points. This is an airline that has so much potential, but unfortunately, they're stuck with some challenging circumstances, like having Frankfurt as their base, which is a great hub for airlines going in and out. Geographically, loads of airline activity there, but there's not that much traffic going to or from Frankfurt itself. There's more people who live in Berlin, obviously, more people who live in the Düsseldorf, Köln area, but that's where they're stuck with their hub. And now they have this dispute with Lufthansa, where a judge has finally decided that Lufthansa does not need to allow people to book tickets intra-European on Lufthansa in order to connect to a Condor flight, because previously Condor could sell Lufthansa tickets to boost the traffic on their long-haul flights. So they're in a tricky situation, which I think is why they need to compete a bit better. But their entire long-haul fleet is now A330-900 NEOs, a nice, modern, fresh aircraft. All their seats have direct aisle access in their fleet now. They have one of the most consistent products in the world because every single long-haul aircraft has the exact same seat, something that most airlines cannot say. So in that sense, they deserve to be here. In fact, because they have such a consistent product and because Their seat is actually quite decent. I think I'm going to put them ahead of Austrian, which might be a bit controversial, but that's where I'm putting them. Now, guys, where do you think I am placing Finnair? This is also going to be a little bit controversial, I think, because I know not everyone feels the way I do about this airline. Obviously, they're not just going to go in red eye. They're not just going to go and take my points. They are going to go right up here and take my money, especially because Finnair has some of the most reasonable cash prices of any European airline on most flights. Finnair, to me, as someone who grew up in Scandinavia, feels like coming home. It's the perfect embodiment of the things that make the Nordics a good place, I think. They're reliable, they're clean, it's so cozy. Their crew, it's like they feed them some miraculous friendliness potion, because most of Europe just does not deliver customer service like Finnair manages to do. Whether they're young, whether they're old, whether they're new joiners, whether they're experienced, every single staff member on Finnair is at least okay, but most are very good, if not phenomenal. I love flying Finnair for the service, for connecting in Helsinki. Their lounges are so cozy, albeit a bit crowded. Finnair, take my money any day. Now, I'm going to skip Icelandair for a second because there's a lot to say there. But then we have Iberia, which I just reviewed. If you haven't watched that video yet, go check it out. It's not my favorite airline in Europe. Let's just say that. I think they have potential. I like even their worst seat, which that's pretty amazing, right? To be happy with an airline's worst seat, let alone their best seats. They have a lot of beautiful A350s, my favorite airplane from a comfort perspective to fly besides the A380, which is obviously very rare among these European airlines. So they have some good things going for them. I also think if you're connecting from a non-Schengen to non-Schengen, so you can stay in Terminal 4S in Madrid, flying Iberia is actually pretty nice. It's smooth to connect as long as you don't have to take the crazy long train ride between Terminal 4 and Terminal 4S, the satellite terminal. But that said, Iberia has some culture issues in terms of the dynamics between the crew and the passengers. A lot of the time you hear people say this over and over. So I think you guys can guess Iberia would go an only option. If I did not have another choice, and if there was a very good price or points availability on Iberia, I'd be happy to fly it, but otherwise, there's no way I would be choosing to fly Iberia. It's just not that type of airline. It doesn't excite me. It doesn't make me happy. It gets me where I need to go. And that's fine. You need to have some of those airlines. If you're interested in luxury travel, I'm excited to announce Points Master, the newsletter, a brand new free 3 times weekly newsletter sharing the best deals, tricks, and insider info to help you travel in comfort on the best airlines, staying at the best hotels, and getting the best deals. You can join today by scanning the QR code on screen or by clicking that link at the top of the description. Once again, this is entirely free and it allows you to join over 10,000 people who were given pre-release access a few weeks ago. Then we have ITA Airways, which I did a bit of a mixed review of last year. That was my only long-haul flight with them so far, so it's a little harsh to judge them based on one flight. What I will say is that their hard product and elements of their soft product are fantastic. They have beautiful cabins on all their aircraft. They have decent food. I think a lot of people feel, I didn't necessarily feel that, but that could be because I had a special meal. I also tried one of the pasta dishes from the menu, which didn't blow me away in any way. I've had much better pasta on the likes of Turkish Airlines, Etihad, and many more, which is weird for an Italian airline with catering out of Rome. But ITA, to me, doesn't excite me. I know for a lot of people it would excite them, but it's not a bad option either. So I think it's fair to say they can go in red eye. I wouldn't mind flying with them. I would definitely choose them over Iberia, but they're not an airline that I just say, take my cash, take my points. I'm super happy to splurge here. That's not the case. Similarly, we have KLM, and this breaks my heart because KLM for so many years was my favorite European airline. Both Oscar and I loved KLM pre-pandemic. We would try to fly them whenever we could. And whenever I was taking a review flight and OSKAR wasn't flying with me, I would always book him on KLM because I knew he'd be happy with it. He always loved the crew. We always loved the crew on KLM. And this is even with their old seats before they reconfigured their 777s with the quite nice new business class seats. We were just fans. It was a fun, quirky, very Dutch experience, which was really, really enjoyable. I just think that over time, the Air France KLM group has decided to invest way more in making Air France premium, while KLM has increasingly become the airline where they sort of choose to spend a bit less. And there's also some challenges that come into this because of Amsterdam Schiphol, where KLM is based. The airport has very strict environmental goals. The city or the country, I'm not sure, are imposing very strict regulations and rules on the airport, which limit KLM's growth. And this puts the airline in a tricky situation because all every airline wants to do is grow. They want to get more competitive. If Lufthansa is launching new destinations, you best believe that Air France KLM also needs to be launching some new destinations to compete for SkyTeam and for their loyal flyers. So KLM has sort of been put in the back seat while Air France is driving this group at the moment, which is such a shame. I would still say KLM is preferable, in my opinion, to ITA Airways, but it's certainly not a luxurious experience. It's certainly not something that I'll be like, wow, I can't wait to fly KLM again at the moment. But I have hope. Nothing is telling me this is going to happen, but I have hope that one day they could return to their former quirky glory, which so many of us loved. But I think there is a very strong consensus in the frequent flyer community that KLM is not what they once were, which is obviously such a shame. Next up, we have Lot Polish. They are introducing a new seat next year, which is very, very needed for them. All their Dreamliners have a 222 configuration, which I actually think is quite a decent seat, especially if flying with someone else. This is a very comfortable seat for sleeping. Warsaw Airport is I haven't been there since 2022, but what I remember from it is that it's quite a convenient, comfy place to connect. So I'm putting Lot in red eye as well, below KLM and ITA Airways. Now Norse is on here for a funny reason, because a lot of the time airline premium pricing makes no sense. So if you look at premium economy on Air France, which I believe to be the best premium economy in Europe, the pricing is crazy. Norse Atlantic is a situation where they charge so little on the few routes that they still fly for their premium economy products, which is a very budget premium economy product, but still they charge so little for it that I feel like I have to include them here, because I end up recommending quite a few of my friends and people who are sort of in between wanting to pay for a business or a full service airline in premium economy and economy. I end up sending them to Norse because I say, check this out. You could probably fly direct, especially from Scandinavia. I send a lot of my people I know to Thailand with Norse in the winter. So, of course, I would prefer to fly pretty much anything else, but I'm not going to put them in I'd rather swim because they offer decent value. They're semi-reliable. It's nothing terrible. It's just obviously nothing exciting. So now we have come to my national airline, SAS. I kind of claim Finnair as my national airline, which is really bad because of what Sweden did to Finland. But I feel like now I'm making amends by loving Finnair and being so proud of them for what they do. With SAS, I'm not proud. I don't love them. I don't hate them, but sometimes I do because sometimes you have to have beef with your national airline. Am I right? But SAS is just so lost. They're so confused. I feel like if they just took one look at what Finnair was doing and tried to emulate that on board, it would already be so much better. But SAS to me completely lacks personality. They try, but they fail to have any sort of distinct feeling when you board. It's obvious they're not going for luxury and premium. So then what do I always say? You need to go for fun, and SAS doesn't give the fun either. So what are you going to do? SAS for me ends up here between ITA and LOT because SAS has decent seats at least. So I'd be happy to sleep on an SAS flight. But again, nothing at all to get excited about, in my opinion. At least not yet, but hopefully they can improve over time, right? So Swiss. I just feel like this video is inevitably going to get so much hate. It's bad. But Swiss, guys, I feel surprisingly little about Swiss, which is the crazy thing, because so many people really like Swiss, which I feel is part of the great branding that Switzerland has managed to accomplish all over the world. Switzerland is obviously loved. I love Switzerland. I love traveling there. But Swiss struggles because being based in the most expensive country in the world, pretty much, at least the most expensive country in the world with an airline, I would say, is obviously very tough for salaries, for the cost of all the materials they need to provide on board. So the experience suffers a bit. The service I find can be quite hit or miss. They don't have a leg rest on any aircraft yet. They will very soon, but it's going to be a slow rollout. And in the meantime, their seats are very lumpy and uncomfortable at this point because they've been around for so long. So for me, Swiss ends up, this is really tough where to put them here in red eye. They deserve to be in red eye, but I don't know if, okay, I'm going to place them before SAS, but I might come back to this. Turkish Airlines. So Turkish Airlines is based in Europe, by the way. They're based on the European side of Turkey, but I'm going to include them when I do a tier list of Middle Eastern airlines as well, just because they fall right in between. They're both a European airline in terms of where they're based, but also a Middle Eastern airline in terms of their business model, which is connecting people between East and West. That is what they do. But obviously, Turkish Airlines has a lot of advantages over most of these airlines in Europe. That's just how it is. Say what you want, but Turkish is a take my money situation. And you're going to think I'm crazy because I still feel that they're below Finnair. That's also because I have a preference for oneworld whenever I can. So if I had to choose Star Alliance or oneworld, Finnair gets my money in this case over Turkish Airlines. But Turkish Airlines is close. They, in many ways, have a much more premium experience. People love Turkish Airlines. I really like flying Turkish Airlines. So there you go. Take my money. That's all their products, by the way, whether they're old 232 777s or their newer business class on the A350s and 787s. I don't think that business class is revolutionary or mind-blowing in any way, which is why I feel they can be grouped together. An airline where I do not feel we can group together their seat types is unfortunately Virgin Atlantic. Actually, most of the remaining airlines, as you can see, I don't think we can group together. That's not fair because they have such wildly different experiences in different seats and on different aircraft. So for Virgin, we start out here with a 787 and A330-300, which has a herringbone layout. You can check out my review of this product on my channel from last year. And you guys, again, you're going to think I'm crazy, but I love flying Virgin Atlantic. I love the clubhouse. I love their crew. I think it's such a fun, endearing, just heartwarming experience. What can I say? Even with these terrible seats, which are worse than any of the seats in the red-eye category, besides perhaps KLM's A330s, which makes me think perhaps KLM needs to be here because those A330 seats, they should really be only option, but I didn't choose to separate KLM because I guess, I don't know, I should have done that. But with Virgin, they're on the low end of take my points with the 787 and A330-300. It's not something I run to, but it's something I still love to fly because I just really love the Virgin Atlantic vibe. So that said, their A350 and A330 Neos, the A330-900, this is going to be so wild to you guys. I'm putting that above Turkish, which again is going to be controversial because people are going to say, what, Dan, are you crazy? You can't put Virgin Atlantic above Turkish Airlines. This is just my preferences. I love flying Virgin, as I said. It's Sky Team, which I also have a slight preference toward over Star Alliance, just in terms of the loyalty programs, the quality of those. I try to always have status with Air France KLM Flying Blue, so you can credit your Virgin flights to there. And yeah, they deserve to be there in that second spot. Lufthansa, however, this is really sad, guys, because I don't know if you know this, but as a kid, for a significant period of time, actually through my teenage years, Lufthansa was my favorite airline in the world. I loved flying Lufthansa, and this was when I only flew economy before I got into points and everything. So I was a Lufthansa stan. I was die hard. But even then, I mean, the mighty have really, really fallen in Lufthansa's case. It is sad, but they have two different products that are very different. So I've decided to separate those. We have their traditional 222 or even 232 layout on some aircraft, which, yeah, no comment on that. And the fact that it's still so prevalent in their fleet. After Allegris was introduced 8 years ago, guys, chop chop, Allegris is completely different. I reviewed that earlier this year, and Allegris deserves to go here. So I would say it is definitely a very decent hard product for 2025. It's not something amazing. I still have some sort of comfort or affinity for Lufthansa, which is why I put them here. Because, okay, oh my God, I'm like, this is crazy. Am I putting them above Swiss? But yeah, with the seat, I think, especially if you get one of the better seats and not the standard seat and Allegris, it is a very nice product. The soft product is not great. That's why I'm not putting them and take my points. But I do think they deserve to be top spot here. What can I say? Their other seat, though, that still goes before Iberia, which is crazy because I don't think I dislike Iberia that much, but Lufthansa's classic business class is nothing to recommend. Absolutely not. But I still have, it feels like home in some way, some weird way, because I flew the Lufthansa so much as a kid. Germany is very familiar to me. I've transited in Frankfurt a million times, Munich as well. So that's why they go here, but it's weak. All these showings down here on only option, they are weak, guys. It's almost, this is not fair. I think Lufthansa needs to go below Iberia, to be honest. British Airways, let's move on. Let's keep this going, guys. British Airways Club Suite, great seat on most of their aircraft. British Airways soft product, again, really suffers from lack of investment, lack of crew training. The food is just so uninspired. Heathrow, on some days it's great, but on a lot of days it's a mess. Anytime you land at Heathrow, there's some BA aircraft that was like that you see on Flight Radar landed an hour ago, and it's still sitting on the apron waiting for a gate. So I struggle with where to put Club Suite on the red eye list, but honestly, I think this is really bad. I'm surprised by this, but I think BA has to go here with their best seat, because BA to me just feels average. They have some lovely crew, by the way, absolute gems as Brits can be, but the company itself does not invest like they should. They think they're premium, but they're not, and that reflects in the experience, which is very unfortunate. I've never been excited to fly BA pretty much, which is super, super sad. So then we have the traditional club world, which is still on the 787-9. It's on the Gatwick-based 777s. It's still on the E380. I think that goes here. So it still goes before Lufthansa's classic seat, because that's just another level. At least if you're flying alone in Club World, you have a bit more space. But yeah, what can I say? BA, you need to step it up. Air France. Air France's new seat. This is also going to be controversial. Why did I make this video? You guys are not going to agree with me, but Air France, I don't think goes and take my money for me personally. They go at the top of take my points. The seat is probably the best in Europe. Let's start with that. Maybe it's a toss-up between the Air Lounge on Finnair and Air France's new seat, but it's a beautiful product. I love it. It's the soft product for me that can be hit or miss. I mean, Charles de Gaulle, I think, is the main thing that really brings this down, because that airport deserves to be in I'd rather swim, to be honest, even the nicer parts. So yeah, that's what I'll say about Air France. And for their other seats, so this is the non-new seats. It can be their older reverse herringbones. It could be the other A350 seat, even the A330 seat. Although if I take that into account, which is a 222, they really need to go down. But on average for Air France, I think their other seats go here. They are definitely the most premium feeling airline in Europe right now, which is why I think they deserve to be at the top of these categories. Even though they're not like the airline I run to, I think they are so high quality and an airline that is doing very exciting things. So that leaves us with Icelandair. And I feel so bad about this because I love Icelandair. Let me say that. I think they are a little adorable cultural gem that take you straight into Iceland when you're on board. It's one of the first airlines I ever flew in business class, and they just have a special place in my heart. So it really, really hurts me to do this, but this is just because of the value for money they represent and the fact that they're not part of an alliance. So you can't really earn many useful points through Icelandair besides through Alaska Atmos, I think. And yeah, it's just, if you consider the price compared to Norse, Icelandair will almost always be more expensive for an experience that's kind of on par. Plus you have to connect, plus you're on a narrow body. Yeah, I have to do this. So that is my final European airline tier list. I hope you guys can have some useful takeaways from this. Maybe it will help inspire your next trip or your next airline choice. But if I do this again next year, which maybe I will, depending on how this video performs, maybe I'll feel entirely different. If you want to see more tier rankings like this and you're not already subscribed, make sure you hit that subscribe button now and hit thumbs up until I see you guys all for my next video. As always, fly safe.